Good afternoon and happy Saturday, wherever you're watching us from. This is Kunjul Online special interview with Abubacarr Jammeh. Kunjul Online has been really busy lately, trying to give young people the opportunity to interact with entrepreneurs, with our politicians, with our environmentalists, with our health service personnel across the country and beyond. We today are having a special interview for a special reason. A special reason being that we have a Gambian community in across the world, in Europe, America, Asia, and in Australia, obviously. And Gambians, obviously, because of our size, we tend not to be shown politically. And today, that's why we're having one of our distinguished guests called Alder Samba Baldeh of Wisconsin, who is a resident of Madison City, but also not a stranger to anyone, especially the Gambian community in the United States and back home in the Gambia. Samba is someone who just obviously is going to join us today. And as a result, we will have the opportunity to interact with him. And we welcome Samba to Gunju Online. Mr. Balde.
Thank you, Mr. Jammeh, for the invite. I am looking forward to the conversations, but also thank you for those who are tuning in.
Thank you. We thank everyone who is following us on YouTube, on our Facebook. Just go on Gunjul Online and you can interact with us live. You can send us questions, your comments. We will display them so that we can interact with our guests today. And also on our YouTube channel, you can watch us live. And if you miss this show or you come a little bit late, you can always go back on our YouTube channel and our Facebook channels. So you will have a recorded version of this conversation, which obviously I am promising a trillion one. And Samba, thanks so much for creating time to join us.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite, Mr. Jammeh.
The weather is so beautiful out there. I know. So it's just, we're glad that we can have you today.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here.
Recently, I know technology, with the advancement of technology, the world is, shrinking to becoming even a more global village. By that way, I mean people back home can sit today and interact with you while you sit at home or in your office in Madison. And this obviously creates challenges, but even more opportunities for people to get to know each other, but also most importantly, to share ideas that will better their lives, that will provide a role model for our young people in the United States here, the Gambian community, the the citizens of the United States and in the Africa. And I think there is no better time to have dialogues and conversations so that we can use people like you as role models to shape our future. Recently on the news, if everyone's been watching, they've seen Samba being victorious in the Democratic primaries of District 48 in Madison area, which consists of the east side, north, and another city, the city of Maple, to be precise. How did Samba came about? We just want to know a little bit brief about Samba. Samba 20 years ago and Samba today. Obviously, you always insist that it's the same Samba. But how did Samba came about?
Exactly. Well, thank you for that very important question. So, obviously, the Samba of 20 years ago was a kid from Nyamina Choya village. That's where I was born and grew up. I started primary school there and then eventually moved to Banjul, where I finished my primary school at Mohammedan School. From there, I went to Armitage High School, where I did 5 years of high school, then came back to Banjul, where I did my sixth form. The year I started my college or my university in Gambia was the year I left for the United States. In the Gambia, I was outside of school. I was very active in the community, so I started what they call Kanifing East Youth Development Society. I work with youth organizations like Lend a Hand. This was a Joshua-based youth organization. So 20 years ago, I decided to move to the United States to pursue education, but better opportunities in life. And so moving here, I have been very engaged in the community. So I find a way to give back, knowing what it means. If we all contribute towards our communities, it makes them better. And so I've been volunteering for almost all the time I've lived in the United States. If you were in the United States about 2011, 12, 13, all the way to 15, and up to now, you realize that the relationships between law enforcement and particularly people of color, Black people, was not at its best. So I was sitting there one day and just started asking myself, what can you do? Before this, I was very active within the African community here, particularly the African Association, the Senegambia Association. So I was doing some relationship building between the African community also and the Madison Police Department, just to make sure that we understand each other's cultures, how we do stuff. But in 2014, particularly relationship all around the country between law enforcement and the African American community was not good, to say the least. And so I started asking myself, what can I do about this, apart from my advocacy around policies that were being implemented that I disagree with, and also just participating in some other ways. I decided to run for office for City Council District 17, which is the far east side of the city, the Eastern Mall included, and things like that. Just to make sure that I am at the table as opposed to just out there advocating. I realized that whatever we talked about now as a form of a systemic racism has a lot to do with our laws, what we have in the books, and so that you cannot change by demonstrating alone, saying something is wrong and therefore should not happen. I realized that the law has to change. It got to be fair and inclusive and to take everything into perspective. So I decided to run in 2015, and I was first elected to council in April of 2015. Since then, I've been serving as a representative of District 17. Towards the end of this year, I decided that to take my community service to the next level. That maybe I should run for state assembly. That became open, and so what I did was put together a team of exploratory team to look into that possibility and see whether or not, in fact, this is something that we could do. And so this is how we are here today. And so that is the Samba of 20 years ago in the Gambia and Samba today here in Madison, Wisconsin.
Thanks, Samba. And some of the things are just not learned when you probably 30, 35, 45, or 50. You can always see how everything came about, how active you were back home. And when you came here, just not just sit and complain about things, but trying to engage those who make those things happen, like with systematic racism, the relationship with the law enforcement. And I've witnessed you give remark at gatherings that you emphasize how people should be involved in our communities, things that are going, things that we can do to be better and bring about changes in our communities. And I think that's a pretty decent political career that just started. And was that your first time to contest for elections?
Yeah, so 2015 was the first time I ever ran for a political office. And so, yes, that was the first time. And then since then, I've been re-elected twice. The city council terms are 2-year terms. And so I have had people challenge me, but I've always been lucky to win. And so this would be my first run for a state race. And so luckily, because of people like you and many others within the African community here, but broadly around the United States, but I would say across the globe, if people are not able to participate directly, they have wished me well. They have prayed for me. And so I am appreciative of that. And because of that, we are here today.
Right. So if people say that, okay, Elder Samba, right? And what does your job entail? I know you are a bridge between the community representing District 17, and hopefully after November, you'll be representing District 48. And what does your job entail? What is the scope of your responsibilities towards your community and the nation at large?
Yep. So my elected office responsibility is a legislator. So the city council is what is responsible for legislating for anything that has to do with the city. My daily responsibilities are over, I would say 70% of our work has to do with real estate and development and things like that. But generally, if your road is bad, that is my responsibility to fix and build. If your water is not clean, it is my responsibility to make sure you get clean water. If your neighborhood is glittered with waste, it is my responsibility to collect that waste. If your tree is dying and you want replacement within the city space, it is my responsibility. If you need a park to go and have good time or just hang out, that is my responsibility. So all the little bitty things that you see around, if you have a lot of snow and it is not removed, it is my responsibility to do within the city of Madison. So generally, we do a lot of zoning and planning and things like that. It is our responsibility to make sure that the city looks good, that it is well planned, that development takes place and meet codes and things like that. So generally, it's legislation and also to a certain degree, this administrative procedures to make sure that they are followed and things like that.
And now you're vying for state assembly, which obviously I'll assume is a bigger responsibility, a bigger office, and probably a little bit more bigger power to change things. And that also increases your impact or your influences that you can have on the legislations and on also developments that you can bring about in your district or in the country. What would be added to what you're already doing, or what are going to be the differences that you will be assuming if you are elected to that office?
Yeah, so the city is the first contact, obviously. So it's very, very local and basically has direct contact with your constituents. So people call you for any little bitty stuff, and it is basically the responsibility of the city to fix. The state is totally, completely responsible. The prison system, for example, is under the state, the county and the state. So how we deal with incarceration, our judicial system is under the state. There are so many things that the state is responsible for that the city has no powers to do. And so that is the difference from the prison system to, in certain cases, just the economy, how we design our taxes, and all this kind of stuff is what the state is responsible for. But it's also the legislative branch of the whole state. So whatever you feel and deal with on a daily basis is basically coming from the state. So it's a bigger responsibility than it is within the city. Obviously, the city is created under the state, and so it's going to be a lot more different than it is with the city.
I know definitely people of color, especially, struggle with the high level of incarceration, high court fines, and are more likely to be sick. Are more likely to even contract COVID, which is currently a pandemic that the whole world is grappling with. I know that with the little bit experience I had in the law enforcement that I worked at, the high incarceration rate obviously affects more of colored people than any race. I've seen your interaction with the law enforcement. Obviously, before you come to the office, things were different. But now you are at the table as an elder currently. Before we move to the assembly, I have seen the law enforcement officials endorsing your campaign. What can you tell us about the developments that actually improves the relationship between the law enforcement and the people of color? Like I mentioned earlier, you mentioned, you gave some remarks at different events that you have advised people to be better, how they can come together to make situations even more better for them. And the law enforcement, obviously, sometimes you might be their first point of contact. For instance, a Gambian or a person of color or anyone in your district or beyond probably be contacted by that law enforcement official. And obviously, there should be a little bit of improvement that I think has happened. But can you tell our viewers how things are right now, different from how it was before? And going forward, what are the expectations that you have will be an improvement on that side? Because I know a lot of parents are always scared. Gun violence, unemployment, and host of things that we faced in this city and also in the country.
Absolutely, thank you. So I am a very practical person. First of all, I would like to say the law enforcement, particularly policing, is totally completely under the jurisdiction of the city. And so if elected to the state, I basically would not have much to do with local policing. I mean, they are totally completely under their cities that they operate under. But again, like I said, the city is created under the state. So what has happened? Obviously, I am, like I said, I'm a practical person. When I first ran, obviously, my biggest problem was the relationship between law enforcement and our communities of color. I had my own feud with our then police chief, obviously expressing my concerns and how I, thought things were not going well. So being practical, I am not into jargons or things like that. I am into looking into a problem and finding solutions as to what is the best way to really fix it. So what I have done over the years, particularly when I was in leadership in the city, was to build relationship between myself and law enforcement, from the county to our local police force. So we understand each other and look at the issues and find the best way to resolve them. So we've instituted a lot of programs, including a violent prevention program. So just recently we had a case where a murder happened or a suicide, a murder happened within our community. So we have programs, supported programs to help restorative justice, but also to deviate kids from going to jail, so that at least they go through a process just to help them, educate them, and things like that. But what I intend to do, if I am finally elected to the state, is to make sure that our law enforcement agencies are funded well, so that if what happened is minority people, in many cases, people like me and you, may not have access to wealth or be able to take lawyers if they are accused of a crime. And so who is there to defend them is public defenders. If those people are not paid well and overworked, chances are that they would always ask you to play on your cases, in even many cases where you would have won, because they have tons of cases to work on, and they are not well paid. So I will advocate to make sure that that changes, that our public defenders are well funded, and then well staffed as well. But I also think we should be strong on crime in a way, not to say if smoking marijuana will send you to jail. For example, in the United States, many states now have marijuana legal. And so many of our Black folks are in prison today because they were caught with some amount of marijuana. So I want to make sure that that is no longer the case. So there are so many things that I really think we should do with regards to law enforcement to make our communities better. We must have to root out the bad elements that we have within our police departments. So obviously, the work of a police officer in this country, where almost everybody has a gun, is challenging. And so how do we really navigate that to make sure that police are given the opportunity to do their work, but at the same time, they are held accountable to the work that they do? So that will be at the state level, making sure that our criminal justice system is fair. So I look into the laws that make it very easy to get us incarcerated, and see how I can change those. And one of them that I'll be looking for is the decriminalization of marijuana, so it can be used not only for recreational but also medical purposes.
I mean, that's amazing. A lot of states, obviously, like you stated, have legalized it, and they've seen the economic impact, but also the incarcerations going down because just a little bit of a residue of marijuana can send you to jail.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, most of us doesn't even have the money to pay legal minds to defend us. And one thing you mentioned, which is really important, is that when you preside over a judge, then they ask you, to go and contact the, public defender's office. Like you said, most of them, if they are underfunded, then you have a very, little chance to benefit, or if they're exhausted. That transitions me back to health care, especially in Wisconsin or in the United States. Most of the people, like America, has a system where if you go move to any state, then you have to start life all over again. It's like a different country. And you have to go get a new driver's license, insurance coverage, and a bunch of other things, change your address. Most of our sister countries, probably in Europe, they have a universal healthcare system where they can just get treated anywhere, which is not the case here. What are the things that are in place or you're working on that will help people to get a better healthcare, even if they don't make too much of money? Or even if they move down here and they're trying to settle down with their families, but then, when they get sick, they have nowhere to go. So I just want you to dwell a little bit more on the healthcare and what are your plans for that area, especially for the community of colors.
Yeah, so as you may know, America has basically two forms of access to Medicare insurance, through the private sector as through employment, or through the federal government, whatever you call the Obamacare, Medicaid, and all that kind of stuff. And so what happened is, if you are employed, I mean, we are a federal government, obviously. So if you live in Wisconsin, you work here, you have employment here. If you move to New York but working for the same company, generally nothing should change. You just have maybe go to a different healthcare provider.
Right.
But I think what I would do if elected to the state legislature is to really expand Medicaid. The Obamacare gave every state the opportunity to expand healthcare coverage to its people. We cannot afford to have people work all the way to 100 years just to get insurance. We have the wealth, we have the infrastructure, and we have the law. I mean, on our side, it's only Republicans majority states who are refusing to take this additional funding from the federal government, so their people can have access to healthcare. If you are not employed, we have Obamacare. Obamacare should be able to provide you healthcare in the state of Wisconsin if for some reason you are out of job. But again, is it enough? So I was early supporter of Bernie Sanders. I think in a country like the United States, health insurance should not be a problem. It should be everybody's right to have access to healthcare. But that is not the reality yet. And so I will work hard to expand Medicaid to make sure that Wisconsinites particularly have access to healthcare. And so that will be my drive. Whenever we get to universal healthcare, I will be in support of that. But for right now, expanding Medicaid to make sure that we bring in federal dollars into the state, it will be my top priority. The reason about that, it also will boost the economy. We will create a lot of new jobs, so people will not only insured getting healthier, but also we are creating job, technology-related job, but also healthcare-related job, and all this other stuff. So that would be a top priority to make sure that people have access to healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, obviously, I'm sure our promo, some have seen the young Samba doing different activities, posting a photo with Barney and all those folks back in Washington. And just going further, you mentioned about your involvement with the community here. Obviously, my first contact with you was at the community event And you know, Gambians and everyone here, you know, irrespective of race, I've seen them, you know, volunteering for Samba, like, you know, not actually even not looking like them, but these people believed in you and they think you're making an impact, you know. Volunteering on the streets, I've seen how people just waved and cheered us because they saw the name Samba on the board. And that's a huge responsibility. It came about with dedication, work, and just sacrificing so much time, energy. And your own community, which is the Senegambian community, you are involved. Your history cannot be complete. The Senegambian community's history cannot be complete in Madison or Wisconsin without your name coming up. This helped also to engage more young people and stuff. But what are the things that you would definitely see from the Gambian community or Senegambian community to be involved in to help you and host of others, and also people that are coming that have political ambitions that they want to run for a form of an office? Because the more people we have that are engaged in all these things, the better our livelihood is going to be. You are hopefully going to be the first Muslim or Black person elected to the state assembly. If I stand to be corrected on that. But what are the things that you would like to see from our community so we can go stronger and stronger, and also to use as a motivational factor to encourage young people the importance of service to the community, because that's how your political career all came about. I know most of us would just want to go and work and make those paychecks. I understand those are real situations that we need to take care of. But also, you always preach that this is where our family lives. This is where we are. We have to make it better for us and our families. It's not even about us, because whatever we're probably going to work right now, we will not benefit it for too long. But it's just going to trickle down to our kids and our grandkids. What do you think would be a responsibility for the communities to support things, people like you, and also support projects that we are doing in our communities, especially when it comes to the services to the community?
So I think that's a very important question. I think it is all our responsibility to make the communities we live in look like the way we want them to look like. And in many cases, the only way you can do that is to be part of the community, find a way to give back. Since I've moved here 20 years ago, I have been a part of the African Association. I've been a board member of the African Association. I have been a member of the 100 Black Men, the NAACP, and all these other organizations. The Senegambia Association, I was among the first members of the association. I remember helping draft the constitution then. I've been the president of the Senegambia Association many years. So you need to be part of the community. It's if you want it to really be reflective of what your thoughts are, it should look like. The other thing I think is building a community is totally, completely different from us just being Africans here, and many of us from Gambia, for example. Community building is very important. We have a very good number of Africans here, particularly Gambians. So what we've been struggling, at least in my personal opinion, is building a community. So I hope, you know, my election to City Council, my election to the State Assembly will probably help us come together to build that community. I see a lot of positive energy, particularly amongst Gambians, to build that community. Sometimes it's a struggle because we are not sure how to build that community. But I think building a community is key, and I hope we can use my office either at the city or at the state level to help do that. What I have done over the years is to really help the African community get a place that they call home. I've worked with the city at some point. They were going to invest about $450,000 to get us a place. But unfortunately, after the place was inspected, there were things that didn't meet some of the conditions around the federal dollars that we were going to invest in there. So I will continue to work hard to make sure that we get a place we home, like a community center, where we can congregate and maintain the good aspects of our culture, but also integrate into the American culture so we are a part of this society. So I'll continue to do that. How do we get involvement? So obviously we have all these associations, the Gambia Association, the African Association, and many others. But there are also other ways that you can be part of your community. The city, for example, the city of Madison has over 80 something committees. Almost all these committees have citizen representation. So if you are a law enforcement person, there may be a committee that you are interested in. If you are a technology guy, we have what we call the technology committee. If you are interested in community development, we have what they call community development block grant committee. If you are interested in parks, golf courses. So there are tons of committees. If you are interested in transportation, healthcare, the environment. So there are tons of committees within the city. And like I said, almost all these committees have citizen representation. So if you are interested, if you want to give back to your community, apply to be one of these, to be in one of these committees. It helps you to understand city government. It also helps you understand local government, but it helps you also give back to your community and understand how government works in the United States, because it's different from Africa.
Right.
And so being a part of that system will help us not only give back, but understand how our government works and be able to hold it even much more accountable. So I would advise every Gambian, every African out there to find a way to be members of these communities or these committees or sometimes boards and things like that. So that is one way to give back. There are so many other ways. Volunteer at your food bank. Volunteer at your schools. I am a big brother, so I go to schools and talk to kids. Help people who are needy. I volunteer with the AIDS network just to make sure that people who has the virus can have access to support, do laundry for them, take them on doctor's appointment, help them move from one apartment to the other. These are the most needy people, and the impact you make around their life is immeasurable. And so let's all find a way to do something. If you love soccer, and I know many of our people do love soccer, find a way to work with the kids, coach them, but also coach them professionally to an extent that they are professional and they are not just doing things out of their gut feelings and things like that.
Right.
So we all have areas that we are interested in. So I would advise that people find what is attractive to them, what is fun for them, what is pleasing to them, and try to do something around it. So that's what I would say with regards to that. But we need to build communities. And the way to build communities is really for us to come together, understanding that we will disagree. Even you and me, I left something to do this interview. So I disagreed with myself. Should I do the interview with Abubacarr, or should I do something? And the same thing with you. Maybe you are supposed to be at work or with your kids or something like that. So life reality is that there will always be disagreement. But there are core things that we all agree. We know we don't want our kids to get into this gangster stuff. We know we don't want them to be killed in the street. We know we want to nurture them and help them to be productive members of the society. How we do that, we may differ from one person to the other, but the ultimate goal is really to help our kids. We also know we want to live in an environment that is clean. Global warming is real. How do we make sure that our drinking water is clean and is safe? So these are things that we share in common. Other communities that are well built recycle their wealth so many times before it get out of their communities. Me and you have no community. If you want to buy a cloth, maybe this came from Africa, but the shirt that you wear came from Burlington. So you got your money, you send it to a totally completely different something that would never come back to your own community. So buy local, engage your community locally, invest in your community. So the wealth that you are spending, recycle within your community before it gets out. I think that is important. But to build a community, we must have to follow processes. We have to respect leadership. Just because I am a city council member or a member of the assembly doesn't make me any different from somebody who is not. But what is reality is that I have more power within the city. I have more power within the state. That is real. It's not me, Samba, as a person, but the position those have those powers. If when I am out there, somebody else assume those responsibilities and powers. So we must follow leadership, and Gambians particularly, we struggle with that. We see Abubacarr as an individual as opposed to the position that he is holding. And it's about the position, like Donald Trump, for example, is all over the place. But have you ever seen anybody insulted? He's insulting everybody. But every American respect him because of the position. We respect the position. We African must have to find a way to also respect leadership. Leadership is not about age. Leadership is about who is really ready to spend their time for the betterment of the rest of us, or for the greater good. And so if we have to build a community, we must be able to come around that kind of an agenda and move forward.
I mean, Samba, I can agree with you more. The reason I even asked the question of volunteering, serving your community, serving our own people, because you want to treat people the way you want to be treated. I don't want to go to the park and just litter everything around that park and just leave it there, because like nobody would want anyone to come and litter your house or your house or your apartment and just leave it like that. But also, I think it just inculcates some form of discipline, tolerance, and but the list goes on and on and on. I was fortunate enough to study in Asia, in America, in Africa. I've seen that, especially in Asia, people cannot even graduate if you don't do certain community service. Universities don't have anyone that goes into the classrooms to clean the classrooms. They don't pay no one to do that. Every student that goes through that university, before you graduate, like your first year, if you're a freshman, you must have certain number of service education that you got to do. Like you wake up 6 a.m., you have to sign up. You wake up 6 a.m. and just go and clean the classrooms 2 hours before class starts. Or some go during the afternoon. But you can never ever graduate without completing those. And I've seen how it helped to discipline the society, how it also helps to nurture the importance of serving other people. And that helps to develop our societies in a healthier way. So I think that's something that is really, really important.
So I think self-accountability is important, and that's where also we lag behind a little bit. So me and you can complain all we want to complain about either Gambia or our community here, but what are you doing about your community? What am I doing about my community? Self-accountability. If I think we should build a community, what am I doing towards building that community?
Correct.
If I think our kids are going astray, what am I doing to make sure that they come and do what is right?
Because we also expect people we also expect those things in return. Like, we expect so much, but we're achieving almost nothing.
Exactly. So it's self-accountability. Like I said, talking is cheap. Whatever me and you are saying is talking.
Right.
But if you want to change our community, it goes beyond just talking. What are me and you going to do practically to bring about those changes?
Right.
So we struggle with really walking. We talk a lot, but basically no too much walking. And if you don't walk, if I want to drink this water and I don't walk to pick it up and open it, that is walking, opening it and drinking it, I will die of taste.
Right.
So there's what they call walk and there's what they call talking. And self-accountability. What are we all doing to make this community better, to make this world a better place? One person cannot do it. Donald Trump, for example, is sitting in DC. What happened within the state, he does not even know, basically. He's only briefed to know.
Right.
The same thing applies in our African countries. The president, imagine you alone. You have a wife, so you get a partner in life who can help you to do some of the stuff that you need get done.
Right.
Imagine a country. If everybody relies on only one person they call the president,
to do
how
everything.
can that country move forward? There is no way. Donald Trump don't know 99.9% of the things that are happening in the United States that is moving it forward, including the economy that he will claim credit for. But
Right.
the institutions are built and people are daily holding themselves accountable to their responsibilities. That is
I
the
think
only
that
way we can build our communities.
I just find it super relevant. That's why I brought that up. So people can, always just be proactive, like you mentioned. Just go out there, do things, community service, be involved in city councils, food banks, and things like that. That's why we're bringing that up so that people can, start thinking of that rather than just sitting and complaining about stuff or talk about it all the time, nonstop. What are we doing to change those things? That's the most, and that's self accountability. Before I go further, one of our followers was mentioning like about weed or marijuana and stuff. I probably think he doesn't really understand what we were saying. Somebody was saying that he is working towards, his aim is just to work to kind of legalize that for medical purposes or whatever purposes. So he wasn't against that. So don't take it as if he is saying there is too much problem with it. So, and actually he went further to mention that people are just caught with a little bit of marijuana and they're sent to jail. So I just want to make that a little bit.
So with regards to marijuana, what I was saying is that, marijuana is like any other plant. It makes you somehow, it has been proven that it has a medical use. So some people have certain conditions. Smoking marijuana will help that. Just like any other drugs, if you have a headache, you take paracetamol or ibuprofen, it helps with that. But we also know people drink alcohol. Alcohol just mess with your brain, just like marijuana will mess with your brain in many cases. But it's legal.
Right.
So why should I go to jail for smoking weed? When good part of this country, people can smoke it and go to no jail.
Right.
I'm not advocating for abusing it or to an extent where people, impacting their well-being and all that. But I do not think people should go to jail for that. I also think the prison system is, the prisons is supposed to be a place where people go for reform. We know when cocaine and hard cocaine and all this kind of stuff, when it started, there are two kinds of them. The ones that the black people use, when they were using it, it was criminalized.
Right.
The type that the white people use, as soon as they started using it, it was seen as a healthcare issue.
Right.
Mental health issue. And so therefore we should help those people. So we just want to make sure that there's fairness in the system. That if I have to go to jail for smoking marijuana, then everybody should go to jail for smoking marijuana. Because America is one country. If I have to go to jail for using some form of cocaine or drugs or whatever, then everybody should go to jail. Otherwise, we should all be treated, we should all be helped, because it's sometimes it's a health crisis or health issues as opposed to a crime.
So, I mean, that's pretty clear. Someone just asked about the healthcare, which we already covered. I would just encourage Diane Wilson to go back probably on the tape to watch that. Somebody already talked about healthcare. If we have time, he probably will just do a recap on those, his agenda before the end of the program. So one thing I also want to mention, especially in our communities, the colored and particularly the Gambian and African communities, I know for a fact that, and you just mentioned here, elected officials in the United States have so much power. But not just as Samba, the office, right? It comes with that, and that is the Constitution. But we have people that have issues here and there in the community. Obviously, we know that you've been there and you continue to be there, and you have the resolve to be there to engage these folks that are in trouble and how to minimize that or mitigate them. But a lot of people watching probably doesn't really understand how things work here if you don't live here, because it's a different system. States have different constitutions, different things. What is your power limit or level of engagement that can go in place? For instance, I have a cousin or someone who is in trouble in New York, and probably what would be an advice from Samba or how he can help to, connect to the, elected officials in all those states to at least put something that will help those people.
Yeah, so for those who may not know the American system, well, maybe I would just say, we have a federal system. And what that means is that we comprise of states that came together and formed the country that we call the United States of America. So the federal government supersedes everything else. The law of the federal government supersedes everything. So states are created out of that. So we have about 50 states and some provinces and things like that. So those states have governors, and those governors are responsible for running the state. And each state has a legislative branch, just like we have in the Washington, D.C., where we have representatives from all the 50 states. We also have the same legislative branches and executive branches in the form of a governor and a legislative branch, a Senate, in all 50 states. So those people are elected to represent different areas into their local state, and then people also elect people to go and represent them in the DC area. So within the local government, we also have counties. So counties have supervisors. They also have a county executive, who is basically the administrator of the county. The county executive, in many cases, are the legislative branch of the county. We also have cities. In the cities, we also have two branches, the legislative and the executive branch. Obviously, the judiciary is still there also. So the mayor is the one who implements the laws that we have in the books, and the council is the one who makes the laws and regulations and things like that. So now, America, again, is one country. So I am elected to represent the state of Wisconsin, or my district at the state of Wisconsin. But I have colleagues. I have city council members that I have known all over the country.
Right.
So if you, as a constituent of mine, whether you live in my district or outside, if the fact that you are an American and we share certain thing in common, then I am your representative and you are my constituents. So if you have issues in DC, for example, or in New York at the city level, I can connect you to a city representative that I know, or the city council itself directly, and say, this guy is my constituent, this is what he's struggling with, find a way to work with him. It's the same thing here too. If I also elect people to go and represent the state of Wisconsin in DC. So if I have issues in DC, or a constituent of mine have issues as to what is coming out of DC, I can speak to people like Mark Pocan, who is my representative in DC, and say, these are the problems. And I've worked with his office so many times around immigration, because immigration is a country, is a national issue. And so I've referred a lot of immigrant community to his office, because they are the one responsible. The state, to a certain degree, has a role to play in refugee resettlement and all that. And I'd be an advocate of that as well. So this is how it works with regards to the system.
I mean, that's insightful, and I'm hoping that people that are watching are, getting, a thrill of this program to understand how things work. It's so easy to live here for 10, 20, 30 years, but not really understand the basic stuffs of how government works and how things work. So we keep expecting wrong things from wrong people, and being involved and doing things the way it should be done, or learn from things, be inquisitive and know about how all this works, definitely helps in us getting to where we can have equal treatment, equal opportunity for everyone. And my next question would be, I know Samba as a politician, right? He's hopefully gonna be elected as but I know a lot of people will see you and be like, "Oh, I once watched you play soccer." What are a couple of things that, just to keep it light, that you do outside of politics? Samba as a family guy, and as an activist and things like that.
So, So obviously, I am married to Fadu Jao. We have no kids. But so that's one thing that I do. I'm a family person. I like to support our families within here and outside. The other thing I like to do, I have alluded to, is volunteering, giving back to my community. So a lot of my time goes into that. I also used to be an interpreter. So I interpreted in 3 different languages for the hospital,
Wow.
for immigration, for Department of Workforce Development. I still get people to come here, so I help them with their paperwork, whether that is employment related, whether that is divorce related, whether that is immigration related. I still do that. I have never been a good soccer player in my life,
Oh, really?
but
So was that Jared that someone was saying we used to
yeah.
play soccer?
So
Okay, I
Jerry,
got that
Jerry used to play
wrong.
soccer, yes.
So I got that wrong.
Right, but I grew up around soccer. Obviously, Africa, particularly Gambia, that's what we do. That is the sports that we are all married to. And so I organized Nawetans in
Right.
Canifing. I did a lot of work within the Canifing community, particularly when it comes to soccer. So I used to do that a lot. But I've never been a good soccer player. But again, growing up around it, I've always been, but right now I keep telling people, I don't even know the soccer players, even the Gambians who may be in international leagues or whatever. I don't know them. So I have really zoned out. If you ask me about basketball, I can tell you whatever it is. If you ask me about football, American football, I will tell you everything that you want to know.
Right.
Those, I have really followed up that game. I mean, not that I do not like football, I still do. Like I said, when I was in Gambia, I was in a professional player or anything close to it, but I really love the game. But I have decided to leave in the community that I live. And that is
Right.
not to say I don't like soccer, but what I see and what I interact with at work on a daily basis is football and basketball. And so
Right.
that's what I know now that I can talk about. But what I do with my time is obviously volunteering. The work since I get into the city is a lot of work. So as part of being an elected member of the city council is that you must have to be part of some committees and a minimum of 3. At some point I was in 8 committees. So imagine those committees meeting at least once a month, minimum once a month. And that excludes the city council and all this kind of stuff. So it's a lot of work.
Right.
But I am out there, giving it my best. I know you reference me as a politician. I am doing politics, but I don't consider myself a politician. But I do politics, and I like it
Right.
because of the services that the opportunity it gives me to service my community and make it better.
So I actually definitely believe in politics. So for me, I just think that everyone is a politician for the fact
Absolutely.
that,
Well, if you look at it that way,
yeah,
yes. I mean, I think even what we are doing here is politicking. We are trying to
exactly.
influence people thinking and helping them understand things in the way we believe it should be understood.
And the good thing about it for me is it just depends on how you define it. But I mean, we know it or not, we accept or not, people gonna go and make decisions on our behalf that impacts our
Absolutely.
lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I am not involved in that, I must be able to eat any benachin or domoda or whatever they brought to the
Yep.
table because I'm
Exactly.
not there when they're cooking it. So for me,
Yep.
that's how I look at it. Everyone
Yep.
should have an opinion,
Mm-hmm.
and God gives you the power to be participating in whatever is happening. Like if we
Absolutely.
go out there and the parks look really green and nice, the sun is nice and stuff. The other time the kids were playing soccer, me and you met there, and
Mm-hmm.
it was really beautiful. It was nice, right?
Yeah.
So those
So no,
things
I mean,
to
I
me
think I
just,
think you are absolutely right.
yeah,
There is this thing they keep saying: you are either at the table
right,
or you are on the menu.
right,
So politics is like the lifeblood of this world, just like the blood that runs in our system. Without that, we can't function or we'll be dead. Without politics,
yeah,
the world will be chaotic and nothing will work. And so, yes, I do totally agree with you
yeah,
that it is important that we participate in these political processes at any level. Because without that, things will happen. So
yeah,
you either be part of it or they tell you what to do. Whether you eat benachin, if you don't like benachin and you do not
yeah.
participate, when people were talking about going to the market and buy what to cook, but you did not participate in all that. But every day when they sit and talk about it, what they agree is to do benachin, then that's what you did. That's what you will eat every day. So I
And
do
you would
agree
just
with your
yeah,
analogy.
like I'm tired of eating benachin. It's not nice. So that
Yep.
would transition us. That would transition us to I think one of your notable achievements together with the community, your
Mhm.
support system. people volunteering for you, your colleagues in the city,
Mhm.
was building up a sister city agreement with the city of Kanifing back home in the Gambia.
Mhm.
You could have just sit in your office, do a private job, live in your nice house and stuff. But it tells so much. That's why I think politics is important, depending on how you define it or what you are into,
Mhm.
what motivates you to be a politician, or not a politician, but a public servant.
Mhm.
And that brought about so many good stuff for the city of Kanifing. Kanifing's the mayor visited here. We've seen a bunch of your photos and stuff. So there is so much that you were involved in that we cannot do justice, just trying to limit the scope of it. But that's a notable achievement that I believe you sponsored that. I've seen the documents and all that, and it came to a fruition. And everyone in our community is proud of that. That's one milestone that everyone talk about. How did it came about, and what are the benefits that the Kanifing Municipal Council got from that? And also, the win-win situation for both cities.
Yeah, so there's nothing like political participation. There's nothing like participation in your community, whether it's at the community level or at the city level, state, or whatever. We all must pay attention and participate if we want to be part of the process. When I was elected in 2015, the city had a sister city program that had existed for over 30 years. Of all these 30 years, there was no one sister city in Africa.
Wow.
No one sister city. The first thing I did when I was elected was to sit with the mayor, and I told him, of all the committees, the one committee that I must have to be appointed to is the Sister City Collaboration Committee. And I told him the reason for that, I want to bring about the change that I think should happen.
Right.
If we value diversity in the city of Madison, then that must also be reflected in our sister city relationships.
Right.
When I was elected, Yaya Jammeh was the president of Gambia. And when I proposed to have a sister city, what I did was, again, I wasn't biased, I was fair. I invited the African community to a meeting to talk to them about the opportunity of having a sister city with the city of Madison.
Right.
The Gambian people at the time were very galvanized because we had just came out of an election where I won. And so they were much more responsive than the rest of the other African countries. So we decided that we need to have a sister city with the Gambia. But like I said, Yaya Jammeh was the president. Every Gambian, almost every Gambian here in the city of Madison, here in the state of Wisconsin, in Gambia, abroad, anywhere, we are against that sister city relationship. People that I know in very high positions in Gambia, some of them my family members,
right,
called the mayor's office and the council office and sent emails alleging that I am doing this for Yaya Jammeh and therefore nobody should support it.
Right.
The community here in Madison went to different agencies that they knew I had a relationship and alleged that I was doing this for my own selfish interest. But I knew why we were doing it. It was for the betterment of the Gambian people. And so today, I didn't give up. I continued to do it. And eventually we had a sister city with Kanifing. Now we have two sister cities in Africa. One is in Ethiopia. I met the mayor of that city. He came here, visited, took him on a tour, and then they were interested in a sister city. Look, there have been people who've been trying to have sister cities with the city of Madison or other cities in the United States all throughout their life, and they were not successful. So this is a big deal. People can think what they want to think.
That's why I pointed it out.
As a result of this sister city relationship with Kanifing, we've been able to donate thousands of garbage collection bins. The mayor has made at least 2 trips. Some of his people have come also when he wasn't here to build a relationship. We've been able to work together on a host of different things that I believe will change a lot of lives or are already changing a lot of lives in the Gambia. So that's what the sister city means. And so obviously it was for the greater good again. The mayor, as a mayor, will be there up to a time, he will leave. Kanifing is never going to go anywhere.
Exactly.
Gambia is not going anywhere. The relationship continues, whoever comes, whether they are the party of the mayor or a different party or whatever, as long as the Gambian people are the beneficiaries, I think that is what is most important. And that's why I work hard to make sure that we establish the relationship, despite all the opposition that I had during the time.
And this is like, it just still remains, even if Samba is not an elder anymore.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
if
It
Samba
has nothing
is
to do
not,
with me.
so these are things that are there. I've seen how it transforms and the value it added to, you know, a lot of people have seen KMC being improved and stuff like that, right? This happened during Yaya Jammeh's time, before the current mayor, who visited at least twice, were there. Nobody heard of it that much. But like you said, even if that can be a tough time and people might be against it and stuff, but now people are seeing that it's not the individual, it's the office. So if an individual occupies an office and move on, it's not going to take that office along, or it's not just not going to take the agreement along to benefit the person at his home, right? And now all those things are things that add value to, you know, what KMC is trying to achieve in terms of its citizens, its communities, the cleanliness of the city, and things like that. So for me, I just believe those are things that are very, very relevant. And if you know, your conscience is clear about something that you feel is the right thing to do, you can have oppositions and stuff, but I think it's always good just to go for it. And people will always see the benefits later.
Absolutely.
So on that, we definitely thank you enough for, we can't thank you enough for what you're trying to bring about. And I know we just running out of time, but I would, you know, on my last question would be, before we wrap up, would be, what advice, especially, I know you've threw out a lot of things out there, a lot of people are watching, and a bunch of people gonna watch later, but what do you think as a young person in Wisconsin should do at this point in time when we're having elections coming in November? I know of a lot of people that are eligible to vote. Many of them are not even interested to go and register and vote. I know a lot of people are voting now, just don't get me wrong. It's gaining momentum. Like even back home, especially in Africa, we only assume that, okay, elderly people are gonna go and vote, right? They are the ones interested in talking about politics, while the younger people like me will complain about the internet, the lack of electricity, water, and stuff. But what do you think, to be specific, we should do as young people to, you know, in terms of registering to vote, in terms of getting or pulling your family in the vehicle and go and vote, you know, just take it as your own. And if you cannot vote, what can you do to make it better, to, you know, to vote or to support people that are going to be there for you and fight for your interest?
Yeah, so I think it goes beyond just the young people. It goes to everybody. If you are an immigrant who got American citizenship, go and register and vote. And with the state of Wisconsin, you can wait the day of the election, you go to the polling station and get registered and vote that very day. So it's not only kids, it's everybody. But why is it important? If you don't want your countries to be called shithole countries, then go vote.
Correct.
If you want your kids who are going to school here to have access to quality education, then go vote. If you don't want dreamers to be deported to countries that they have never known, then go vote. If healthcare is important to you, then go vote. If getting a job in this country and feed your family is important to you, then go vote. Go vote if life has a meaning to you.
Right.
Go vote if there's any meaning to life. Voting is important. People died for it in this country. Remember, women were not allowed to vote. Black people were considered half a people, not to talk about them voting.
Correct.
People died. So me and you can sit here and talk about what we are talking about, but also be able to vote. If life has any meaning to you, you should vote. It matters.
Right.
The reason why Donald Trump can call us names The reason why he can choose to fund the school or defund them, the
Right.
reason why he can choose to make sure we have healthcare or do not have healthcare, is all the reasons why we should be voting.
And in addition, just to be, reluctant to fund the post office to actually allow people to vote using mail ballots.
Exactly. Imagine who else was going to do this if we didn't elect Donald Trump. Imagine how Donald Trump get elected in the state of Wisconsin, 11,000 votes. Think about that. So your vote is very important. Your vote is what determines whether kids, particularly kids of color, have access to good education, have access to good teachers, have access to a limited classroom size, eat dinner before they go to bed, eat breakfast before they go to school, and eat lunch before they nap. These are very important things. So not only to the young people, but everybody in this country who can vote, go and vote, register and vote if life have any meaning. And I'm sure life have meaning to you because you live.
I know we always say that that's the last question, but I just remember one question that is pretty important that I would just throw at you, and then we will wrap up from there. So yes, Samba said, go and vote if you can vote. I mentioned, I think you framed the answer better, that it's everyone, not just the youth. I just feel that the youth can do more to even volunteer and put their time, resources, and energy to canvass for votes and things like that. You are in Wisconsin, and as an elected official, obviously we all assume Wisconsin has a lot of Republicans occupying responsible positions, elected positions. I know for a fact that Democrats and Republicans are always fighting to the different ideologies, different plans to govern. And you, if elected to become an assembly member, a Senate assembly member, obviously there will be a lot of challenges that you're going to face, because what is your priority probably is not a priority of a Republican who probably chairs or has more of votes in that. So what are the things that you expect to do to be able to build compromises, to do things differently where people can benefit, even though you might find those things as obstacles on your way? And I will just use that to wrap up. You're welcome to take as much time as possible just to wrap that up. And also, if you could just in a very short note at the end of it, just mention a few things like elections and the healthcare and all those things, so that if people that are joining us lately can just have a little bit of an understanding of what we talked about.
Yeah, so obviously reality is that the legislative branch in the state is controlled by Republicans. And so it is a two-party system generally in the United States, and each party has their own agenda items that they would like to advance. And so, but what I know is that with regards to education, for example, that has no boundary. Whether you are a Republican or Democrat, you want your kids to get very good education, particularly if they are going within the public schools. So I'll find common grounds and work with Republicans in the areas that we agree on. I'm sure we'll find something on education. I also believe we'll find something on the criminal justice reform. With what happened with Floyd in Minnesota, I think whether you are a Republican or Democrat, you do believe that something should change, particularly within the criminal justice system and our police departments. I also do believe that Republicans also get sick, and some of them are poor. And so I think I'd find Republicans who will be willing to work with me on healthcare, on expanding Medicaid, so that at least we bring in more jobs and more federal funds to the state of Wisconsin and get our people employed. So these are areas where I think I can find common ground and be able to work with my Republican colleagues. Like I said, they're human beings just like us. Of course, as a political party, they believe in different ideologies that I believe, but I'm sure they believe that good education is good for every child. I also believe that health insurance is good for every human being. I also believe that they do believe that the criminal justice system do need reforming. and systematic racism is not sustainable in this country. So I will look for those common grounds and find a way to work with them. With regards to healthcare, I think I've alluded to that. I supported Bernie Sanders at the beginning. I do believe that this country is the richest country on planet Earth, and therefore I shouldn't work up to 100 or however long I live just to give me health insurance. I think this country should provide for that. And so it is important that we also support our service providers at the hospital, the doctors and nurses who keep us safe every day, particularly in the wake of COVID. And so I'll continue to support services that would protect them, services that will make sure that they provide high quality services to the American people, particularly in the state of Wisconsin. Beyond that, obviously, if we are to wrap up, I don't know if you have another question, but just to say, Abubacarr, thank you for inviting me and for having the conversation. But also thank you to our African immigrant community, but generally to the District 48 electorates. I am humble, very humble, and also grateful for the support that everybody has given me, not only these past elections, but over the years since I started running for office. So I thank everybody out there, the Gambian people in Gambia, for their prayers, their well wishes, and congratulatory messages. So I'm grateful and indebted, basically, to all of you for your support, whether you are able to do it financially, morally, and just inspirationally. I know everybody's heart is in it for the better. And so I thank all of you for being there for me. Together we can move it forward. Again, I'm the candidate, but the victory belongs to all of us. I am your asset here. You can work with me to make sure that we advance all our agenda for the greater good. And so looking forward to that. I am not going to be mysterious or not be accessible. Just like you have access to me now, 1,000 years from now, if we are all alive, you'll have the same access to me as long as we are doing the community work. What I would not like to waste time much is really distraction and all that kind of stuff. But beyond that, we are in this together. And like I said, the office is not Samba. Samba is always going to be that Fulani guy from Choya village who came to America just trying to find ways to make this world a better place. And so that is where we are. So thank you, everybody, Abubacarr, for the interview and the conversation around this. I hope those who tune in will find it useful and helpful. But if you have any questions also, if you live here or anywhere in the United States and you have questions, feel free to email, call me, or text me or whatever through Facebook, whatever means that you have a way to contact me.
Thank you so much, Samba. Once again, congratulations on your victory and good luck to the November elections. And as a community, I'm hoping that we will always take it as our responsibility that it's just not you, it's just us. We just have to understand that. And thanks so much for spending your Saturday with us.
Absolutely.
We can thank you enough. So that's it for today on a special talk show interview with Alder Samba Baldeh of an elder for District 17 who is vying for the Wisconsin Senate seat in November. So if you can vote, go on vote, register to vote, mobilize your people who cannot vote. If you can put your resources, your time and energy, if you cannot vote, just go and have a banner and just stand in front of the intersection and stuff. So together, because these are things that are important to us, these are things that are relevant, these are things that we're not doing just for ourselves, but even our kids, our grandkids, to make this place a better place for all of us that is worthy of its name, to call it home, and just to be involved so people don't make decisions on our behalf. We can make decisions together that benefit and help us. So on that note, we thank you all, and thanks especially for Samba spending his Saturday with us, and everyone, all our viewers. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube, on Gunjur News Online and Gunjur Online on Facebook. And every Saturday we have usually a Gunjur-based Saturday show. So catch us next Saturday. I am your host, Abubacarr Jammeh, and thank you all for joining us. You all have a blessed rest of your weekend.
Ima